Hello and a really big warm welcome to this presentation from the Urban Penguin. My name is Andrew Mallett, and in today's presentation we're going to take a look at Python and sticking with the single source of truth, the pyproject.toml file. We've already seen how we can use it to replace the requirements.txt file, so the requirements that are needed by a package, and also for the setup.py, so we don't need to create that Python file when we're creating our packages. But did you know you could also use this as a configuration file, so you can store settings that you're going to use for your linters, such as the standardized black linter. And doing this means that you're going to have a very consistent setting between your different Py projects, and they're going to be easy to understand and easy to read. So come on, let's look at doing some linting with pyproject.toml and black. So I'm back working in my Python project and the pyproject.toml file. We've already seen that we're able to use this as a replacement for our requirements.txt and our setup.py. But we could also use this as a configuration backend for many of our Python linters, such as black. And in this instance, we'll be using black as our linter. So I can add in a setting for this. So tool.black. As we start putting our settings in, we can go through and specify, let's say, our line length. This is just show me the default line length of 88 characters. Anything longer than that, black will try and put it across multiple lines. I generally use 80 characters, so I can add that in, and having this setting in all of my projects will ensure then that I have got that consistency that we're really looking for. I'm going to go through and add in a skip magic trailing comma, and I'm going to leave this as false. We want to include the magic trailing comma. You'll see this and how it is used, but we're able then for a list to put in a comma at the end to specify that we want that list broken up over multiple lines. We can go through and there's another skip that we can configure, and often we would, and we want to go through and put our string normalization. And again, we don't want to skip this. The idea is that we know for strings that we can use single quotes or double quotes. To Python, there is no difference. But if we start quoting some strings with double quotes and some strings with single quotes, then we might be confused, or other people might be confused, as to the difference and the reason why we're swapping our quoting mechanism. So just make sure that we are ensuring a consistent quoting mechanism. As we continue, we could also specify the type of Python that we are formatting for. So we can go through and specify our target version. And this then becomes a list. So I can go through and specify, let's say, py39. We know that it should work with that. And then we might say 310 and comma. And then we can have our py311 and py312. I'm using Python 3.12, but my standards that I'm working with are pretty much anything from 3.9 through to 3.12. With that configured, let's go through and save it. I can test the configuration as is. So if I now move out to my terminal, I don't have to worry about any command line settings. So I could look up black ---- help. I've already installed the black module, so pip install and black. But when I look at it, there is a lot of options we could provide from the command line. But it will pick up from my pyproject.toml, and I don't need to even tell it to look there. we can go through and just do black and dot. And we can see, well, the 4 files within my project all seem to be working and working well at the moment. So let's change that so we can see what black actually does. When I go through now and create a new Python file, we can just call it test_1.py. And we can put some settings then that may need tidying. So we can start off with, let's say, our list1 equals, and then we can go through and have, say, 1, 2, 3, 4, and comma. This is our magic trailing comma. And so long as we're not skipping this, we're telling black that it could format this list over multiple lines. Whereas maybe list 2, even though it could well be very similar, maybe we don't want this over multiple lines. So we can have 4, 5, 6, 7. That doesn't matter. Well, I've got 5 twice. It doesn't matter. And then we can have, let's say, 8. But I don't put in the trailing comma. I also haven't put any spaces there, but it should format that for me nicely with spaces between my entries. We can have then text1 equals, and as we go through and then put some entries in for this, if we go through, let's say, with double quotes, this is some text. And then we can have text2. Perhaps inexplicably, we're now using single quotes. This is some more text. These sort of inconsistencies we certainly want to tidy up. It seems excessive in such a short file, but imagine going through many lines of code and many code files to be able to sort this out. Black can do it, and black can do it really quickly. As we start creating longer lines, let's just put this as text 2, not that it really matters, but I'll just put some trailing spaces at the end here as well. They should be tidied up. But we'll put in some longer lines. So we could have my variable equals, and then this is some text to write a long line, and the code is too long and I don't want to use the scroll bar to read it. Now I've gone out to 127 columns there. This is the sort of thing we want to avoid. But the problem is with this code, there's little it can actually do to try and make it a little bit shorter. It's a single line of text, so it doesn't know where to break it. And the code, it can't really put my variable and the equals on separate lines. Whereas if we look like something like this, where we put then print, and then when we go into our print statement, we can go through and print some text, and let's add in some lines of code from this. So that's 78 lines of code. Let's just put in some extra code. So we've gone to 82 lines. Whereas this, we can actually have our print parentheses opening up and then move the text onto another line. I'm going to create a couple of simple functions as well. So I'm going to have then define f1. And within this function, we can then, well, again, let's just go through and just have, say, 2 spaces rather than our standard 4 spaces. Even though this will work, it's an inconsistency, so we don't really want it. So I'm going to go through and then we'll just put pass in here, so we're not really doing anything. And then we can go through and define function 2. And it's gone to the same 2 spaces, but this time I'll put 3 spaces. and we'll put pass. And then we can have, let's say, define function 3. And we can have one, we'll put, say, 7 odd spaces in there, and then pass. I won't put a new line at the end, which should break a PEP guideline as well. But this code would work, but we've got a lot of inconsistencies. So now let's go through and just save this. And let's just close it down for the moment and then run black again. So we can see now that that file's been reformatted. When we look then at our test 1, so our first list where we put the magic ending comma, which wasn't really required, was actually saying that we didn't mind it being spread over multiple lines, and it's much easier than us spreading it over multiple lines. Whereas list 2 didn't have the comma at the end, so it was maintained on one line. You can see our text now is organised with double quotes. There's nothing they could do about this long line assigned to the variable because it was just a single line of text, whereas where we included the line within the print statement, there was some adjustment that it could do. And we can see that we've tidied up all of our functions, so they're all uniformed, and we've added in an extra line of code. We also don't have any trailing spaces at the end of our lines. So rather than us spending time going through linting our files ourselves, we can make sure that our project is consistent and meeting PEP guidelines by running a linter such as black. Storing the configuration within the pyproject.toml file means that we have the single source of truth, the single reference file, to be able to read configuration for our projects.
All that is left to say is thank you for watching. If you've enjoyed this, then you are probably sadder than I first thought. For more of this drivel, please subscribe, like and comment to @TheUrbanPenguin.